Stocks continue their rally this week as people talk about opening up restaurants again. And we'll talk a bit about the unemployment rates and some of the statistics I found about that. The war on hydroxychloroquine continues. There is a myth about the mass graves over in New York, and Alyssa Milano tries to go back to her leftward roots and be accepted by those who rejected her over the Tara Reade allegations. Plus, we will check in and thank everybody who made Contemporary great this week. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Wouldn't you know it, as soon as I get everything set up, the studio lights are all on, the sun comes out and make the studio lights nullified again. But at least the sun is out, and we've got a lot to look forward here to today. Make sure you are going over and checking out the Freedom Scoop charity stream that we are going to have going on today. 12 hours, and there are going to be some great things going on. We've got some great guests that are going to be coming in throughout the day. It's going to be everybody from the Freedom Scoop Media Group plus many, many more for 12 hours. That is going to be 11 to 11 Central, noon to midnight Pacific, with proceeds going to benefit first responders and also furloughed workers if we can pull up enough money. And there are great prizes as well if we pull up more and more money throughout the day. So go and check that out. You will see in the link in the description below or above, depending on whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or DLive, there is a new link for a GoFundMe in there. It is the second link in the description because Restream has to be on the top for whatever reason. They think that they're the most important. So go ahead, check out that link, and go follow it, and throw a couple bucks towards first responders. They really need it throughout all of this. So go and check that out. And go over and check out the Freedom Scoop Media Group over at freedomscoop.com as well. We do still want to be your one-place stop for all news. News for the people, by the people, is what we want to be. So go and check us out over there. We're going to start today with the story from CCN. Dow eyes post-Easter surge as bullish Pfizer targets 2020 coronavirus vaccine. This is from Joseph Young. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed the week on a tear, and the stock market rally may be primed to continue when trading resumes on Monday. Despite surging jobless claims and gloomy expectations of Q2 earnings guidance, the Federal Reserve's consistent aggression in easing fiscal policy and progress with coronavirus is keeping the market afloat. The index secured a decent 1.22% gain on Thursday after the Fed said it would inject $2.3 trillion into the U.S. economy to provide relief and stability. So, just keep printing on that money. Keep printing it out. Companies across all industries, from pharma giants to cigarette manufacturers, are focusing on creating coronavirus vaccines and drugs that can be used in the near term. Vaccines require many months of clinical testing before they can be distributed commercially, which led scientists to estimate 12 to 18 months for a vaccine to be manufactured. But on April 9th, $196 billion pharma corporation Pfizer said that it predicts a coronavirus drug to be made in the next 9 months, leading the Dow Jones to react positively to it. The company said that it intends to enter clinical testing by the third quarter of 2020, which would cut the estimate of the coronavirus drug production timeline by half. Dr. Michael Dolstein, chief scientific officer at Pfizer, told CNBC. If the clinical testing goes according to plan with the approval from the authorities, Pfizer said it may be able to produce and supply millions of vaccine doses by the year's end. The creation of the first coronavirus vaccine is expected to lead to a massive reaction from global markets, which would trigger an intense Dow Jones recovery. When the vaccine comes from an American company listed in the U.S. stock market, the Dow Jones is likely to respond more fiercely than anticipated. So that's some positive light in all this, and we have seen a little bit of the V in the Dow Jones again, so that'd be something to look forward to. Let's move on to see the downside of this and what somebody calls negative. This is from CNBC. JP Morgan now sees economy contracting by 40% in second quarter and unemployment reaching 20%. This is from Patty Dom. JP Morgan economists issued an even more dire forecast, now foreseeing a 40% decline in the nation's GDP for the second quarter and a surge in April's unemployment rate to 20% with 25 million jobs lost. In an earlier forecast, they said second quarter GDP would be down 25%. The economists, however, continue to see a second half recovery based on the assumptions that disruption from the pandemic fade by June. They note that the number of people seeking unemployment benefits totaled 16.8 million in just 3 weeks. With these data in hand, we think the April jobs report could indicate about 25 million jobs lost since the March survey week and an unemployment rate around 20%, they wrote. Given the expected hit to hours worked this quarter, we now look for 40% annualized real GDP growth in the second quarter, down from 25% previously. They expect the third quarter to rebound with a growth of 23% and a fourth quarter increase of 13%. They forecast a 10% decline in the first quarter. The economists said they will finalize their employment forecast in April in the coming weeks. In general, economists have had a difficult time measuring the impact of the virus shutdowns, and many have been revisiting their forecasts, with a number of firms now seeing hits of more than 30% in the second quarter, historical levels that have no modern precedent. Over the last few weeks, forecasters have been operating in a fog, and economic models that have been trained on post-war data face obvious limitations. In their place, we have reverted to differing ways to address the outlook, they wrote. The JP Morgan economists said they initially considered the impact on demand, looking at the type of spending cuts that would come as social distancing was explained and increased in duration. They said they later looked at the supply side impact as stay-at-home orders increased and limited the quality and effectiveness of labor as a factor of production. So, JP Morgan says we're just going to crash the economy in. To hell with everybody else. Nobody is going to try and innovate or do anything else. They just say that we're going to crash it. So, thank you, JP Morgan, for that great response. I've got one more here for the Daily Wire, and then I want to look at some statistics that we are seeing coming around the 2008 crash and what that means for what I've been saying for the last few days. This is from Paul Bois over at Daily Wire. Chef Robert Irvine talks to restaurants reopening. Do it smartly. Celebrity chef Robert Irvine appeared on Tucker Carlson Thursday night and laid out some practical steps for restaurants reopening in the next few months. Understanding that restaurants reopening will have to come with enhanced safety precautions, Irvine said that businesses will have to adapt to measures of social distancing, which will require some changes, cleaning habits, seating plans, and possibly even menu sizes. A restaurant, like any other business, has a break-even point, and that's a huge thing when we come into business, he said, as reported by Fox News. People need to come back to work, but it has to be done safely. We are not going back to full 300-seat restaurants, he admitted. We have to let the guests know that it's safe to come into not only the restaurant, but the stores at the same time. People are going to be scared, and we don't know what's going on. I'm not a doctor, but I know I want to get back to work. My life is about saving restaurants, and that's what I've been doing. Irvine has been keeping in touch with former clients of his on the show, Restaurant Impossible, instructing them on ways to keep afloat during this difficult crisis. He stressed the importance of reopening those businesses while advising them to work with the experts. So is Restaurant Impossible like a knockoff of Bar Rescue? Because it kind of sounds like the same concept. It's a good concept. I like Bar Rescue when I had network TV, but if it's just going to be a knockoff, then why have two of the same show? All these mom and pop restaurants and mom and pop stores need business. We need money, and that's the way the world goes round. So let's start doing it smartly, he said. Listen to the experts, but also let's be smart when we say, okay, you can let 50 people in your restaurant over a 2-hour period. And then you have to adjust everything. We have to lay out new guidelines clearly for guests so they know what to expect. The restaurant industry has taken a beating during the economic shutdown caused by the pandemic. Last month, the National Restaurant Association predicted that 11% of restaurants would be closing permanently. Hudson Reel, the association's senior vice president of research, said the data shows the industry is in uncharted territory. So let's look at some stats here. Thank you, Paul Bois. So I was looking into this, and I kept saying that we're doing about on pace to what 2008 was, but we're doing it all at once. So I looked for something this morning to see if I could back that up. And what I found was two PDFs from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. One of them shows on page 2, this is from the recession of 2008 to 2009, BLS Spotlight on Statistics. On page 2, unemployment. One of the most widely recognized indicators of a recession is higher unemployment rates. In December of 2007, the national unemployment rate was 5%, and it had been at or below that rate for the previous 30 months. At the end of the recession in June 2009, it was 9.5%. In the months after the recession, the unemployment rate peaked at 10% in October of 2009. Before this, the most recent months with unemployment rates over 10% were September 1982 through June 1983, during which time the unemployment rate peaked at 10.8%. Compared with the previous recessions, the higher proportion of long-term unemployment, those unemployed for 27 weeks or longer, in the recent recession and its post-recession period is notable. So, we got to 10% in 2007, or 2000, was it 2007 or 2008? 2009 rather, I'm sorry. So we got to 10% there. So I found another document showing what that looked like. This is from the employment situation, October of 2009. So on page, it doesn't give me a page number on that one. Oh, it's page 1 right on the top. On page 1 of this document, the Bureau of Labor Statistics cites the unemployment rate rose from 9.8 to 10.2% in October, and non-farm payroll employment continued to decline, minus 190,000. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported today the largest job losses over the month were in construction, manufacturing, and retail trade. And in this particular instance, construction, for the most part, is going forward because everyone wants to finish those roads. Manufacturing is going strong as well. So a lot of this is lower paying jobs that are being furloughed, not necessarily at the top of the line, or all these factories as well. They're being shifted into making products to save the pandemic. So that's something to keep in mind as we look forward, which jobs are being furloughed. But here's the number that I was interested in. Now, you can see, because they go back to October of 27 in the chart, I will link this in the Discord as well. October 07 over to April of 08. The unemployment is a little bit steady. It starts to kick up in March of 08, and then it comes back down in April to about where it was. And then you start to see a pretty sharp decline up to October of 09, where this was at the peak. So all these jobless claims were adding up over a period of a little bit over a year. And that's what I was getting at. We had a little over a year to get up to the point that we are at right now. And to further bolster what I just said, in October, the number of unemployed persons increased by 558,000 to 15.7 million. The unemployment rate rose by 0.4 percentage points to 10.2%, the highest rate since April of 1983. Since the start of the recession in December of 2007, the number of unemployed persons has risen by 8.2 million, and the unemployment rate has grown by 5.3 percentage points. So, just like I said, a little bit over a year to go from 5% to 10%, and to get all of these people off the payroll in a year and a half's time. Versus us right now, this is a flash in the pan kind of moment. Everybody went on unemployment right away because the government told them that they couldn't go to work. So I thought that was interesting, and I wanted to use these charts to back up what I was saying. And this chart will be in the Discord, so I'm going to keep that up. Let's talk about Wisconsin and what they're seeing with the pandemic. And I'm not going to say the pandemic name anymore, because I've been noting that there's an algorithmic demotion of people who say that particular word. So I'm going to be doing some workarounds with this as best as I can. The first few days I might slip and my videos might get algorithmically demoted. I think I read it in one of the previous articles. But Brown County reports first virus death. Wisconsin deaths top 100. Brown County reports its first death from the disease. The county health department says the patient was a 58-year-old man. Ted Shove of the Brown County Health Department says the man was in the hospital for symptoms of the deadly disease for more than a week, but he had underlying health problems that caused him to be hospitalized multiple times in the last several months. Health officials contacted everyone they determined the man had recent close contact with. None has shown any signs of the disease. Including the man who died, the county has 54 total positive test results, and most of any county in northeast Wisconsin. The death was announced after the state released official figures Thursday afternoon. The number of deaths related to the horrible disease in Wisconsin topped 100 on Thursday, according to those numbers recorded by the Wisconsin Department of Health Services. So, once again, we're seeing a point where we don't know if this man died from the horrific disease that I shall not speak its name, but he tested positive for it, and he had been hospitalized for numerous times. So, A, this is affecting somebody who had an underlying health condition to begin with, and B, we don't know if he died from the disease or something else that he'd been hospitalized in months recent, because he had been hospitalized in months recent. So, thank you, WBAY News. Let's talk a bit about the war on hydroxychloroquine. Wonder if that'll be the next one that gets algorithmically demoted. We'll see as we go forward. Publisher of hydroxychloroquine study touted by Trump says the research didn't meet its standard. This is from Elizabeth Cohen. President Trump has been a cheerleader for the drug hydroxychloroquine, pointing in a tweet and in person to a French study as evidence that one particular drug combination might be one of the biggest game changers in the history of medicine. But now, the medical society that published the French research has issued a statement saying that the study does not meet the society's expected standards. Dr. Kevin Tracy, president and CEO of Feinstein Institutes for Medical Research in New York City, gave an even more pointed assessment of the French research. The study was a complete failure, he said. It was pathetic, added Art Kaplan, head of the Division of Medical Ethics in the New York University of Medicine. The small French study of 20 people found that taking hydroxychloroquine was associated with the viral load reduction and disappearance in the unnamed disease patients, noting that the effect was reinforced with azithromycin, an antibiotic known better as Z-Pak. Tracy and Kaplan pointed out that several patients who took the drug ended up faring poorly, dropping out of the trial, and their outcomes were not factored into the study's final conclusions. The International Society of Antimicrobial Chemotherapy published the study online in its journal, the International Journal of Antimicrobial Agents, on March 20th. Although ISAC recognizes it is important to help the scientific community by publishing new data fast, this cannot be at the cost of reducing scientific scrutiny and best practices, according to the April 3rd statement by Andrea Voss, the president of the society. Voss noted that one of the study authors, Jean-Marc Rollein, is editor-in-chief of the medical journal. So, CNN and many other mainstreams have been at a war with this particular drug. And of course I know why, because you can't let the president take credit for anything, but we do need to keep in mind that we have enough cases in this country of people who have recovered anecdotally that weren't a part of the study that we could possibly publish a study on this. And we do still have right to try in this country. So if people are like on death's doorstep or whatever they may happen to be, then they can request to try something. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, they were on death's doorstep. But of course, because they were on death's doorstep, the mainstream media is going to say that life was directly caused by Trump, and he put a gun to this person's head and told him to try it, or something ridiculous like that. So, yes, it's going to be interesting to watch how this war goes throughout the next few weeks. But we may have another idea on how to treat this. This is what we may call the control group. This is from CNN as well. Sweden challenges Trump and scientific mainstream by refusing to lock down. This is by Tim Lister and Sebastian Shukla over at CNN. Much of Europe is still on a coronavirus lockdown with severe restrictions on movement and penalties for those who transgress. But not Sweden. Restaurants and bars are open in the Nordic country. playgrounds and schools too, and the government is relying on voluntary action to stem the spread of COVID-19. Oops, well, this one's demoted. It's a controversial approach and one that's drawn U.S. President Donald Trump's attention. Sweden did that. The herd, they call it the herd, Sweden's suffering very badly, very, very badly, Trump said on Tuesday. But the Swedish government is confident its policy can work. Foreign Minister Ann Linde told Swedish TV on Wednesday that Trump was factually wrong to suggest that Sweden was following the herd immunity theory of letting people catch the virus while protecting the vulnerable, meaning a country's population builds up immunity against the disease. Sweden's strategy, she said, was no lockdown, and we rely very much on people taking responsibility themselves, which was what this country was built on. Why is Sweden doing the America better than America is? Who knows? The country's state epidemiologist, Anders Tegnell, also pushed back against Trump's criticism that Sweden was doing badly. I think Sweden is doing okay, he told CNN affiliate Expressen. Is producing quality results in the same way it's always done. So far, Swedish healthcare is handling this pandemic in a fantastic way. It was more Russian than Swedish. I apologize. As of April 9th, Sweden has 9141 cases of the deadly pandemic disease and 793 deaths, according to Johns Hopkins University figures. Maybe I should stop calling it deadly because it seems to be less and less deadly as we go. Sweden's actions are about encouraging and recommending, not compulsion. 2 days after Spain imposed a nationwide lockdown on March 14th, Swedish authorities were encouraging people to wash hands and stay home if sick. On March 24th, new rules were introduced to avoid crowding at restaurants, but they very much stayed open. So did many primary and secondary schools. Gatherings of up to 50 people are still permitted. Tegnell defended the decision to keep schools open. We know that closing down schools has a lot of effect on healthcare because a lot of people can't go to their work anymore. A lot of children are suffering when they can't go to school. Elizabeth Leiden, a journalist at Stockholm, told CNN the city is less crowded now. The subway went from being completely packed to having only a few passengers per car. I get the sense that a vast majority are taking recommendations of social distancing seriously. But she added that while some Swedes won't even kiss their spouses, others are throwing Easter parties. So it'll be interesting to see. We'll call Sweden the control group. We'll see if they do better than everybody else who is locking down in a panic. Sweden might be the next world power because they're the only ones that are going to have manufacturing after all this and jobs. I got a little quick hitter from CNN as well. I don't know if this is authored. Oh yeah, this one has an author on it. Unclaimed coronavirus victims may be buried on New York's Hart Island as the state's death toll climbs. So this is the story that was going around Twitter the other day and talking about the fact that these are mass graves and these are Trump burial pits and this is all Trump's fault and he personally went out and killed everybody from the coronavirus. When it turns out that all they're doing is working with the unclaimed bodies and the people whose loved ones didn't even know that they died. So this is from Mark Morales and Laura Lai. Unclaimed coronavirus victims may be buried on New York's Hart Island as the state's death toll climbs. New York officials say that Hart Island, which for decades has been used as the final resting place for those who died unclaimed, will now also be used for unclaimed disease victims. It's likely that people who have passed away from the disease will be buried on the island in the coming days, New York City Mayor Press Secretary Freddie Goldstein told CNN. Drone pictures on Thursday showed bodies being buried on the island. The move comes as New York continues to respond to its devastating outbreak. More than 161,000 cases and 7,067 deaths have been reported in the state, according to Johns Hopkins University. Hart Island has been used by the city as a public cemetery for over 150 years and is managed by the Department of Corrections. The Hart Island burials are mostly people who have been unclaimed at the city's morgue for anywhere from 30 to 60 days, Goldstein said. Over 1 million people are interned here. The city is transferring unclaimed bodies to Hart Island to make way for other disease victims whose bodies will be claimed. Goldstein said, new rules from the ME's office say the bodies will be taken to the island, if they go unclaimed for 2 weeks. Only people who have been or have not been claimed by relatives or a loved one will be buried there, Goldstein highlighted. Despite the new rule from the ME, Goldstein said as long as morgue officials make contact with a relative within 14 days, they will not be moved to Hart Island. So, this is not going to be a mass burial for so many people that are dying. This is just for people who were unclaimed by their loved ones, like it has always been for the last century and a half. This was a ridiculous story that got pushed around social media and took off before anybody tried to vet anything out of this. So, good job, Twitter. We got one from Fox News here. Some good news coming out of the West Coast. Washington's field hospital to be dismantled before treating a patient sent the state's worst hit by the disease. This is from Steven Saras. The massive Army field hospital that hundreds of troops built inside a Seattle Convention Center last week will be dismantled before treating a single patient. Instead, it will be redeployed to a state facing a more difficult battle against the outbreak, Washington Governor Jay Inslee said on Wednesday. Nearly 300 soldiers from Fort Carson, Colorado, and Joint Base Lewis McChord near Tacoma, Washington, built the makeshift facility inside CenturyLink Field Event Center, normally home to the NFL's Seattle Seahawks and Seattle Sounders of the MLS, for patients who do not have the disease. We requested this resource before our physical distancing strategies were fully implemented, and we had considered concerns that our hospitals would be overloaded with deadly disease cases, Inslee said in a press release. The facility housed 250 beds, a lab, x-ray machines, surgery facilities, and an ICU. But Washington's early action to limit the spread of the disease has helped the state to slow the disease's infection rate and allowed hospitals to maintain the capacity to support a surge in patients, Inslee said. So, I wonder where that's going to land, but good on Washington for getting this out there and getting it out for people who actually need it, because Washington, while it was the beginning of the news verified outbreak in this country, was relatively low hit. For the most part, most of the deaths came from just one single little nursing home over in Seattle. And not a lot else. Whereas New York, where they're all stacked up on top of each other, literally got hit hard and fast, especially considering the fact it went to New York in the middle of flu season to begin with. So, good on Washington. Good on Jay Inslee. We got another one here from CNN. U.S. nears peak death rate with New York confirming more disease cases than any other country. This is from Faith Karimi over at CNN. The New York governor signed an order to bring in additional funeral directors as the number of coronavirus cases in the state outpaced all countries except the United States. Governor Andrew Cuomo's executive order will make it easier for licensed funeral directors in other states to practice in New York. And we were seeing some of this as well, and talking about possibly drafting some people. My chair needs oil. Possibly drafting people from other states in the medical field and now the funeral directorial field to go and work in harder hit areas than where they currently are. Possibly people coming out of Chicago, Houston, or the middle of the country going to work in New York, possibly for even some hazard pay to get them out and lessen the load on that the disease has had on New York. So, stretch that to include funeral directors. At least 16,686 people have died of the disease in the U.S., nearly half of them in New York. Of the 466,299 total confirmed cases nationwide, about 162,000 are in New York, data from Johns Hopkins shows. The U.S. is set to reach its highest daily number of deaths on or around Sunday, according to models by the Prominent Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington in Seattle. It is estimated that 60,415 in the U.S. would die of the disease by August, assuming social distancing policies continue through May. That projection is down from the 82,000 it predicted earlier in the week, which is down from the 200,000 that the news media was slamming on us a week ago, and even further down from the 2 million that we were told as soon as this started getting out of hand and as soon as they started wanting to blame the president for it. So, we will see what happens in the coming weeks. Now let's talk about some of the politics that go behind this. This is from Fox News. WHO leader Tedros asked to explain China ties by GOP members of the House Oversight Panel. This is from Dom Colicchio over at Fox News. The embattled leader of the World Health Organization is facing a new pressure to explain his relationship with China's government as the world's nations, including the U.S., continue grappling with the deadly pandemic. In a letter Thursday, several Republican members of the U.S. House Oversight Committee called on Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, the Ethiopian politician who heads the global health body, to explain why he praised China's transparency during the crisis, which has been linked to nearly 96,000 deaths around the world as of early Friday, including more than 16,000 in the United States. China has faced numerous accusations that it downplayed the outbreak in Wuhan, which is believed to have sparked the pandemic. Let me get a drink here because I'm tripping over my words, and that usually means I've got a dry mouth. Thus hindering other nations' ability to adequately prepare for the arrival of the virus within their borders. Throughout the crisis, the WHO has shied away from placing any blame on the Chinese government, which is in essence the Communist Party of China. The Republicans wrote to Tedros, "You, as a leader of the WHO, even went as far as to praise the Chinese government's transparency during the crisis, when in fact the regime has consistently lied to the world by underreporting their actual infection and death statistics." I would love to see what the actual numbers are out of China. The letter cites a January message on Twitter in which the WHO said Chinese authorities found no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission of the virus. On January 14th, the WHO tweeted that preliminary investigations conducted by Chinese authorities have found no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission of the novel virus. The letter states, these preliminary investigations included China jailing any doctors that disseminated information about the disease not first cleared through the state-run media. Oh, there's no human-to-human transmission? Surprise! The letter also notes the role of U.S. taxpayers in supporting the global organization. In 2017, the WHO received 17% of its total funding, or $513 million from the United States. The letter says it is essential that American taxpayers' money is allocated to organizations that uniformly serve the interests of nations across the globe, not merely the interests of China's authoritarian communist regime. After sending the letter, several of the GOP signees made additional statements, they including ranking member Jim Jordan and Representatives Jody Hice and James Comer and Glenn Grothman. The World Health Organization should be ashamed that they relied on Chinese propaganda when deciding how to combat the crisis, Jordan said. President Trump is right to question the WHO's role in the global health going forward. So, I don't know, maybe there won't be a WHO anymore. It's a part of the UN. I know a lot of people were talking about completely defunding it in the chat yesterday. So, we'll see what happens with that. Given the immense power of the bureaucracy of the UN, I don't think it's going anywhere, but it's a nice thought. I got a couple here from the Daily Wire, and then we'll talk about celebrity news, because that's always fun. Graham, China responsible for 16,000 dead Americans must be severely punished. This is by Daily Wire News. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham told Fox News' Sean Hannity on Thursday that Communist China must be severely punished for the 16,000 Americans that have died as a result of the virus that originated in China. The first thing I want to do is get the United States Senate on a record where we don't blame Trump, we blame China, Graham said. The Chinese government is responsible for 16,000 American deaths and 17 million Americans being unemployed. It's the Chinese government and the way they behave that has led to this pandemic. This is the third one to come out of China. I want to make it our response to this so overwhelming that China will change its behavior, Graham continued. I want to get the medical supply chain back in the United States. I want to start canceling some debt that we owe to China because they should be paying us, not paying China. So I think you will see bipartisan pushbacks against China to punish them so severely to deter them in the future. So, we will see. And I do think that for an extent, globalism is going to be over and we're going to start making stuff here. So this may be the best thing to happen to our economy at any point. Further pushing the Democrats to try and win the 2020 election so they can jump up and take care of the manufacturing boom in this country, if they even allow it to go ahead, because they are particularly usually more globalist in their business plans. But this is going to be an interesting election year, no doubt. I've got one here from Ryan Savadra. Violent felon released from Rikers Island over the disease. He was just arrested again. Law enforcement officials say that a violent felon who was released from Rikers Island due to the outbreak in the prison has been arrested again for allegedly, wait for it, robbing a bank. James Little was cut loose from the jail because of the outbreak on March 28th after being locked up for strangulation earlier in the month. The New York Post reported, according to police sources, about a week later on in the morning of April 7th, Little allegedly tried to rob an Apple Bank on Irving Place in Gramercy Park. The New York Daily News noted that Little was on parole for a 1995 murder. Oh, this guy sounds charming. And then the alleged strangulation stemmed from charges of assaulting his girlfriend. The Daily News says that Little was arrested on March 3rd over the alleged incident inside his girlfriend's home in Brooklyn. The Post said that Little wore gloves and a face mask when he allegedly tried to rob the bank. Well, he was protecting himself at least by passing a note to the teller that told her to give him money. Authorities arrested Little the following day after his alleged failed robbery attempt. Investigators believe he knocked over 2 Midtown banks on January 23rd and December 26th, leaving with $1,000 in each robbery. That's hardly worth it in today's dollars, the Post added. Little served more than 20 years in prison after pleading guilty to a murder committed in Coney Island when he was 15 years old. Charming sort of fellow, but yeah, let's just cut him loose. He's been convicted of one murder, he attempted another one, and now he's robbing a bank. Great guy. Great guy. All right. One last one here before we read the names of everybody who chatted in the live chat through the week. And if you are in the live chat and not chatting right now, get your last minute messages in. Remember on Facebook that you are going to have to go over to Twitch DLive or YouTube if you want to get called out in this. So you've got your last chance now to get on over there before I start reading the names here. This is from Fox News. James Woods slams Alyssa Milano over anti-gun tweet. Buy more ammo. Yes, James. This is from Dom Colicchio. Conservative actor James Woods was quick with a response Thursday after left-leaning fellow thespian, that's really what you want to call her, Alyssa Milano, decried the recent surge in gun sales in the U.S. Americans bought over 2 million firearms in March of 2020, over 1 million more than this time last year, wrote Milano, who backs Joe Biden's presidential campaign. Tying the gun statistics to the outbreak, Milano then shared her advice for how the public should deal with the crisis. We have to keep each other safe by social distancing and washing our hands and not bringing dangerous firearms into our homes, she wrote, adding the hashtags Stop the Gun Surge, and of course the name of the disease I'm not going to mention is in that one, and No NRA. In his reply, Wood suggested that some gun buyers may have very pragmatic safety reasons for planning weapons purchases. You know, like letting a murderer out of Rikers Island so he can go and rob a bank. Thank you for the reminder, Woods wrote to Milano in retweeting her post. When the looting starts, always be prepared. Buy more ammo. Some recent news seemed to back Woods' concerns. With many businesses closed and Americans struggling to find items they need amid the outbreak, reports of burglaries and other crimes have been in the news. In California, authorities in Stanislaus County said this week that 10 suspects have been charged with looting, which refers to thefts that occur during emergency situations. Police in Modesto say a man and a woman were recently seen in a store parking lot pushing a shopping cart containing about $400 in items, which they allegedly hadn't paid, the Modesto Bee reported. The woman was arrested, but the man remained at large. In another incident, police arrested 2 men who allegedly broke into surrounding businesses so they could access the ATMs at a Wells Fargo bank branch, the Bee reported. In New York City, police say burglaries at commercial addresses have risen 75% since March 12th, when Mayor Bill de Blasio declared a state of emergency, the Wall Street Journal reported. Seattle has seen burglaries rise 21%, including an 87% spike in the city's downtown area. Police recently told radio station KTTH AM. Rising crime and rising anxiety, such as that prompted by the pandemic, often lead to a rise in gun sales. Gun store owners and others recently told Fox News. Firearms are a psychological symbol of being safer in uncertain times, Dennis Santiago, a California-based firearms instructor and financial risk analyst, said last month. People will gravitate to them. They are not acquiring them to use them. They are purchasing them hoping they won't have to. And that is it right there. Everything that I own, I hope that I will never have to touch and use. But it's there just in case. And to be fair, and this is, I know, the tired argument that the gun advocates always use on social media, there's also a fire extinguisher that I also hope that I will never ever have to use. But it's there. So, and this is Milano just trying to maintain her relevance and try to get back on the good side of the lefties right now, because she's got everybody pissed off at this point over her Tara Reade thing. The right is pissed off with her with how she treated Kavanaugh, and the left is pissed, especially the hard left is pissed off with her because she won't stand with Tara Reade and she has a double standard for justice. No, she's just trying to get a political agenda through, just like everybody else. There's nothing more evil about her, less evil about her. She's just another political hack, and that's about it. So, the last thing we do on Friday is go ahead and shout out everybody who came and chatted in the live chat through the week, because you guys are what makes Contemporary great, and because I don't read the live chat during the stream, which I actually do, I'll look over and look at it, but because I don't read it during the stream, I want to make sure that you guys get the recognition that you guys get throughout the week. So I write all your names down in my handy little notebook here throughout the week, and I give you guys recognition throughout the day. So let's start with who chatted today. So we have Sully Blue over in the live chat right now. Miami 1984. The Generational Gap has been here. The R-Rated Conservative, who you can check Generational Gap and R-Rated Conservative out today on the 12-hour charity live stream. So go and check them out. Spartan 0000 sub to me now has got quite the sticker over there. I'm quite interested in what that is over there. I like that. Seawall is over here. And that is it for the day. Let's see who chatted throughout the week. Yesterday, we had Sully Blue, Ron Helton, and Seawall up in the chat, so thanks for chatting yesterday. Wednesday, we had Seawall, Sully Blue, and HKO34, a new viewer, or one that I don't recognize the name of, was in there. So thanks for coming and checking us out. On Tuesday, we had Sully Blue and Ron Helton talking back and forth in the live chat. And on Monday, we had a busy day. We had Ron Helton was in there, Top Beat Coco, Seawall, Sully Blue, Brittany Kirk was in while we figured out what was going on with all the fun stuff and figuring out who. Well, that was the day that the connection kept blinking. And Nephilim Ninja was in there to round out the week. So thanks everybody who came and checked us out throughout the week. We will shout you out again on Friday if you come in and chat for the rest of the week. Let's make sure, of course, that everybody is going over and checking out the live stream today for charity. It'll be on my channel. All of my channels, I should say. Everything you're watching on now or can watch on now, it will be on today. It will be on DLive, YouTube, and Twitch for the Generational Gap. What else are you guys on? Generational Gap. Mixer, I think you're on. Picarto, are you? I'm not sure. Periscope for Twitter, I know you're on there because I've retweeted you out there before. It'll be on all of Stephen Ignoramus' channels. He has 7. YouTube, DLive, Twitch, Picarto, Mixer, DLive, all of those. Everything for the R-Rated Conservative, it's going to be on throughout the day, so go over there and check his channels out. Get in the live chat for all of those as well. And it'll be on Wyatt Birkenhoff's channels while he's on the show as well, because he's going to be on later on during the day as well. So go and check us out. There are plenty of places to go and check us out because we are out to get maximum saturation, to get the maximum number of people donating for all of these first responders who have helped us out. And for those of you who are in the live chat right now on the DLive side, I'm going to hit the chest right now while we're talking about this, because I forgot to do it during Ed's World. So we've got that going, so go ahead and get your rewards while we go through and clean all of this up. Do thank everybody for coming over here, and of course, remember, you can always go and check us out if you can't check us out live on demand on YouTube, or you can catch us on the audio platforms, iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. And if you're on iTunes, leave us that 5-star rating and a good review. That helps us overcome Apple's algorithms and get us moved up the charts. So always do that as well. And throw a download in. Even if you're not going to listen to it, throw it in and delete it. It also helps us move up the algorithms. I'll maximize your saturation. Generational Gap says, DLive is the primary, Twitch, Periscope, and Picarto. You've got YouTube too, so don't leave that one out. And with that, I think we are going to take off. So thanks everybody for checking us out throughout the day. And we will see you on the charity live stream. Take care, everybody. Have a great week.